Good evening, viewers. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Personality Profile Friday on PM Express. Tonight, I bring you a man who all of us really want to know. It doesn't get bigger than this tonight. I've been asked by all of you out there to bring this man on PM Express again, and that you'd like to know about him. We are going to unveil him. He's been doing things on the local scene. He's broken free on the international scene. And we all follow his name whenever we hear sounds in his direction. Aremeyaw Anas is back on this set. And tonight, we are talking about a number of things. We are getting into his life. I call him the good thief, really, because a thief is supposed to be bad. He employs the tactics of thieves, but for a good purpose, and that makes him a good man. He's at once a contradiction in terms, all in himself. At the end of the day, he gains recognition in all corners of the world. And I am sure the day the President of the United States of America mentions my name in his speech, I can roll over and die in peace. But he goes on, despite all the accolades he gets. Anas, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I cannot lose sight of the fact that more often than not, the tendency for people is that to gain international recognition, you must go through an Ivy League school or something like that. You must be born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and you really have to have someone high up there holding your hand into the corridors of fame. Did you have a privileged upbringing?
That's an interesting question. You see, if you look at privilege, it depends on how you want to define it. But I would say I was privileged, because to have lived in the barracks all my life is a privilege, I think. Not the privilege in the sense that there's a lot of money to do, but the privilege that I had to learn the military discipline. That's what has kept me up to what I am today. I dove my heart every day, my patience to wait for stories to happen when they should happen, and all those disciplinary measures I take in the things I do is because of nothing but the fact that I did everything, learned everything as a barracks boy, and that is what has kept me as I am today.
Why the barracks?
My dad was in the military. In fact, we lived all my life in 37 military hospital. So you can imagine, you are born in the barracks, you attend nursery in the barracks, you do your JHS in the barracks. I tell you, if there was a senior secondary school in the barracks, my dad would have insisted that I do it. But it's a very proud past that I look back to, and I think that it's a great one.
So tell me about the kind of education you had.
Yeah, so right from my primary and JSS level, I went to one of the best schools in Ghana, of course. It's called Christian Methodist. Sometimes people think, but I learned a lot from that school, and I'm so proud of Cremeto. It told me that it didn't matter which school. What mattered was the brain and your ability to get your focus on, your ability to focus on what you went to school to do. And I am very happy to be a proud product of Christian Methodist.
You went to university as well, and some wonder how you managed to walk through a university and all of that and still maintain your identity, which is, as a matter of fact, a lack of identity.
You see, Commonwealth is a very strategic hall. You know, vandals already have that spirit of that protection once they can read in between the lines where you want to get to. And forget not that our motto is true stance. So I would say one of the formidable places that I had very good protection was from the Vandal City, and really it worked well. I managed to go through academic work successfully. You find a room, I mean, you are not brought into public events, and everything worked nicely. Don't forget, even in the university, the name that I used was not my real name. It was later that the very close ones got to know that, yeah, indeed, they were dealing with me. So Vandals really did a lot to have their identity protected.
Let me ask you a question I must ask you. Are you scared of your own shadow because of the work you do?
As for fear, maybe I've said it here. I was purged of fear long ago under the hands of Kwekuba Jr. So fear doesn't catch me. But of course, fear must catch everybody if you don't do proper due diligence, if you don't put your backup in place. But once the backup for whatever you want to do is been put in place and you are sure you can market and get 49 or 99 compared to 100%, then you know that you are in business. And if you've done all this, I see no reason why you should fear.
Are you ever worried that on assignment you may never come back home?
Look, people sit in their normal taxis and drive to work as taxi drivers. Sometimes they don't come back. People just walk, even in church, and fall and don't come back. In every profession, the professional hazard will still be there. So I don't push mine very far. I push mine like the average taxi driver. If you fall in the line of the battle, so be it. Once you can justify that the cause you embarked on is to the benefit of humanity. For me, these are the key ingredients. But I will not be surprised if anything happens, because my colleagues over the years, whenever we go to the Global Conference on Investigative Journalism, you can almost remember how you were sitting down strategizing a story with a colleague, and you report the next year and they say he died in the field. I mean, it happens, but what can you do? Somebody must do it. Because, you see, our forefathers did it, and posterity will not forgive us if we don't do it. And we are not doing it for ourselves. We are doing it for the generations to come.
Interesting. Ordinarily, I remember that on this very show, a man we many tout as Ghana's finest journalist, Kweku Sechiado, said that to him, you are Ghana's best journalist. I'm sure you saw that. How do you take that?
I must say I was very humbled to come from such a respectable senior colleague of mine. I was very happy.
And I believe you deserve it. But ordinarily, again, one does not rise to the top of their game in journalism in their 30s, gain recognition from a certain president, gain recognition from the Atlantic magazine that looks for outstanding personalities around the world, gain recognition everywhere you turn. I can't count the number of awards that you won, and I'm sure I will find time to talk about all of that. And now Africa Investigates on Al Jazeera. How did you manage to do this, my brother?
Whenever I watch Africa Investigates series playing, I don't smile because you find me in most of the investigation, but I smile because of how the idea started. It was right here in Ghana. And if you must know, the headquarters of Africa Investigates is right here in Ghana, because the idea was mooted right here. A good friend of mine, Sorius Samora, came with Ron Makela to do a documentary on me for the BBC World Service. So after the documentary, we sat down and Sorius, with all the great stories, and I have a lot of respect for him for the great work he's done over the years, consistently, CNN, BBC, everywhere. Right. So we sat, in fact, we were sitting at a corner in Osu, when I brought up the idea that, listen, guys, what can we do for the continent? Then Sorius was like, yeah, it's the same thing. That's the reason why we are all seated here. Then Ron was, why don't we come with a series called Africa Investigate that would have the capacity to impact on various African countries and the problems that come along with it. We all bought into the idea. We thought it was a great one, and we proposed a toast to that. The difficult work is when you start doing the paperwork and all that. So they got to London, and by the time we could say Jack, Al Jazeera had already put up their hand that they were interested. So what we did was that we brought about 100 journalists applied to take part in this series. It was whittled down to 50, later on to 10. And all the 10 top African journalists were brought to Ghana. And as experts were flown from London and other parts of the world to come and give them the needed skills that will enable them or us to unearth the problems within Africa dispassionately. So when that happened, we were just there one afternoon when we heard that the bosses had flown from Doha and they were coming to join us. Then Dermot and John Owell, all of them came together. That was when I started realizing that this is not an empty dream. We are getting there. Of course, how great Africa Investigate will be would definitely depend on the stories that it churns out.